Coming up on Marriage Today with Jimmy and Karen.
So if you're going to have successful communication, remember, your spouse isn't like you. They don't need what you need, and they don't hear like you hear. If you're a man speaking to a woman, talk security, and you will succeed in communicating with that sister. If you're talking to a man, speak the language of respect. You can say anything. You're an equal. Karen, when we got married, I didn't like to talk. I like to talk a little, but she just wanted to talk all the time, and she wanted to talk about everything. And when I came home from work and stuff, I thought she was nosy, and I just thought, I don't want to feed that monster. And where'd you go? Who'd you see? What'd they say? How'd you feel about that? I was like, this is a boundary violation. And you need general information about where I've been and what I've done, but my feelings are my feelings. But that wasn't good with her. But one of the things that healed our marriage is when I started talking to Karen and understand this is what connects her to me. This is what connects her to my world, and what she needs is patient, loving communication. So here's my little speech, and you may have heard my little speech before. Here's my little speech. Okay, so women typically don't need sex as much as men. But what I say to women is be more sexual than you feel. Your husband has the need for sex. You have the gift of sex. And God gave you that gift so that it would draw your husband back to you constantly. Don't despise that. It's a precious thing that keeps your husband coming back to you, and it's important to meet that need. Be more sexual than you feel. That's my little speech to women. Here's my little speech to men. Okay. I just got through saying something really wonderful to your wives, because that was a biggie. You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. Here's my little speech to you. Who cares if you don't want to talk? You talk. I just told your wife to be more sexual than she feels. I'm telling you, you talk more than you feel. And you come home, and when she wants to talk, you talk. And don't give her headlines. You open up. You do it with your friends. You do it with her. And she says, what'd you do today? You don't say, nothing. Filled up my truck. Went to work. You say, honey, I woke up this morning at 6:37. I didn't actually open my eyes, but I came into consciousness. I was feeling a little insecure about my meeting with Bob. And just, that's what she wants to hear. She wants to hear. And she needs every now and then, get a nail, just stand here like this, poke yourself and cry. It's big points. Big points. And I drove down the street and the dog had been run over. And she goes, oh, really? I love it. Oh, you cried. So, give it up. Give it up right there. And so that's it. So it's not your need. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you don't need to talk at all, but it's not your need, but it's your wife's need. So women are different in this area, and men need to respect their wives' need for open, patient, honest, emotional communication. And it's wonderful. I just tell you, I've done it for years with Karen. I like it as much as she does now. I don't know if I'm kind of getting girly or not, but I'm just telling you. But here's another difference between men and women in communication. Men are emotionally modest. Women are emotionally immodest. Now this is men are physically immodest, and women are very physically modest. And so when women have sex, they are very modest. And so they want, doors shut, lights off, children anesthetized, it's a careful environment, because they're very physically modest. Men, just anybody anywhere. So, but it's a difference. But men are emotionally modest. Now, we don't talk like you talk. If you're ever in a restaurant, you have a table of women over here and a table of men over here, listen to the way they talk. And you listen to the women talking and they're saying, well, did you know that Barbara is going for a real difficult time with Sam? Really? Oh, yes, she called me the other day and said she's just devastated and said this and this and this and this and this. And they're talking about relationships and they're talking about feelings. They're talking about real stuff. That's this table. The table of men over here says, Bob, did you get your muffler fixed? Yeah, I did. And, yeah, I'm going to go to the Cowboy game the other night. Really? Did you go hunting? What'd you kill last weekend? Well, I killed a 7-point buck. You know, and that's the way how'd you feel when you killed that deer, Bob? I felt real good. I felt hungry. We're not going to talk about our emotions. We don't do that. We're emotionally modest. So women, when they have sex, because they're physically modest, very, very private, don't tell anybody, don't talk about it, this is between us, dark room, locked door, everything's very careful. That's the way we talk. That's the way men talk. See, women are emotionally modest. They'll just say anything to anybody. I mean, they're just unguarded. That's just the way God made you. We're not that way. If you want a man to talk, if you ever tell somebody what we said, we'll never tell you anything again. We don't like that. And so you get us in a room, you lock that door, anesthetize those children, and we're going to sit down and talk in a very careful environment. And when we open our heart, you be careful how you respond, because we're very tender on the inside. We really are. Men don't open if you're sarcastic, if you're judgmental, if you're mean-spirited, anything like that, a man will shut down on you, because this is the Holy of Holies. Women are tough. Women can argue with each other. When a man's heart rate goes above 100, he can't hear. We just can't do it. We just zone out. It's like women are so tough emotionally, and women can just talk about their emotions and just argue with each other like that. And men are just like grabbing guns, and we're just like, don't you talk to me like that. Women are tougher than men emotionally. It's just the truth. The way you talk to your husband is keep him calm. Is you honor him, you respect him, and you let him know every word you're saying to me is sacred, and I will not share it, and I will not take opportunity with it, and I won't use it against you later. We're different than you are. Ladies I have the greatest respect for women in the way God made you, but you need to understand, we're just not that way. And even to this day sometimes with Karen, we'll be talking or something like that. It's just hard for women to understand the way we're wired. And so I will open up, but I will not open up in the same environment that Karen is willing to be opened up in, because I'm emotionally modest. That doesn't mean I won't talk. It just means it's a different environment.
Life is a journey, once full of hope to make this world a better place, to leave a legacy to the ones we love. But somewhere along that journey, we've lost our way, forgotten what's important.
When marriage is no longer respected, couples begin to separate and their children begin to suffer. Marriage is the future. We must build marriage. And what we love to do here at Marriage Today is give people hope, because marriage works. Marriage works wonderfully. God would never create anything for failure.
The world was telling us to give up. People around us was telling us to give up. But Marriage Today was a light in a dark place for us at a dark time.
Hearing Jimmy and Karen Evans just talking about how God could restore any marriage, it started to bring hope back into me.
They changed our life, and they changed our future.
We love helping people in marriage, but we have to have support to do that. In everything that we do, we know that we're touching millions of lives every year and millions of families. Would you stand with us as we build marriages in America and around the world? The families that we help and the children that we keep together with their parents are because of you. Please consider giving your most generous gift to help us here at Marriage Today lift the standard around the world for marriage and family.
Here's another difference between men and women. We hear through our deepest needs. Now, this is a huge, huge issue. Listen to what I'm saying. A man's deepest need is the need for honor. This is our mega need, the need for respect. This is the need above all needs with men, even above sex, is we want to be respected. And it's not egotistical, it's the way God made us. We want to know that we're a good man. We want to know that you respect us. That's big, big deal for us. Women's number one mega need is security. They want to know that their husband is tuned into them, and sacrificially, he will meet their needs. Sacrificially, to his own hurt. When a woman knows that her husband's tuned in and to his own hurt, he will put her first and meet her needs and the needs of the family, she's in heaven, okay? So when we communicate with each other, we have to encrypt our language with their need. An example is this. When a man, I didn't realize this about Karen, but see, she can decode my language very quickly, okay? She knows if I'm speaking security or not. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. It doesn't matter what the conversation is. Here's what she wants to hear me say, encrypted in this. I care. And I'm tuned in, and I'll do whatever it takes. My heart is turned toward you and our family. I'll say no to anything else, and I care about how you feel. When I'm talking with that tone in my voice, Karen's very calm and very reasonable. But when she hears a tone in me that says, I'm disconnected, something else is more important than you, I'm checked out, she's on high alert. And I can't calm her down. And I can sit there and say, what are you so upset about? Like that. She said, because this, I don't understand. My heart's not there. I've got everything I say to her. If it's going to be successful, it's got to communicate security. I'm tuned in, it's okay. But I'm different. When she talks to me, and I've said this to Karen, especially early in our marriage, I said, the way you say it's more important to me than what you're saying. So whatever you're going to say to me, if you want me to hear it, you need to say it the right way. Here's what a man needs to hear. I believe in you. You're a good man. I love you. You're the best. I respect you. And you can talk about the kids, you can talk about work, you can talk about spirituality, you can talk about your needs, you can talk about your hurts or fears or anything like that. But you come with your guns loaded and you make us feel now as though you don't respect us and you don't believe in us. We can't hear. It's a jamming frequency. When men are speaking insecurity, it's a jamming frequency, and women just can't hear because their alarm is going off. When a woman comes at a man and makes him feel like, you're a bad man, you're not a good man, I don't believe in you, it's a jamming frequency. It doesn't matter what you're saying, and it doesn't matter if you're absolutely 100% right. You've made it much harder for me to listen because of the way you're talking to me. So if you're going to have successful communication, remember, your spouse isn't like you. They don't need what you need, and they don't hear like you hear. If you're a man speaking to a woman, talk security, and you will succeed in communicating with that sister. If you're talking to a man, speak the language of respect. You can say anything. You're an equal. But say it with respect in the tone of your voice, and you'll succeed in talking to that man. Let me say this. Same is true of little girls and little boys. If you're going to talk to a daughter or a granddaughter and successfully communicate with her, she needs to hear the language of security. If you've got a little boy or a young man that you're trying to influence, you have to speak honor to him because he's just a little man and she's just a little woman. Any one of the opposite sex that you're communicating with, you have to understand they're different and they have to be talked to in that way. Let me finish this message. Just let me tell you the 5 standards of successful communication in marriage. Those are the common problems that people don't understand. These are just standards that you have to use in successful communication. The first is caring. The first standard is I care. Now, here's a very simple principle. You can't communicate with a person who doesn't care. It's just impossible. And if someone doesn't care about you, you don't have a chance in the world of effectively communicating with that. And so you know when someone cares. And here's how you communicate care. It's body language. Your body language tells your spouse. It tells others if you care or not. Your countenance. The way you look at them when they're communicating. If you're rolling your eyes, if you're turning your head away, that's not good. But if you're looking at them and you're making a good response and you're listening to what they're saying, you're feeding back, say, yeah, I understand. Yeah, I hear that. And like that tells a person that you care. That's number one. You have to care. And you have to communicate care to communicate. Number 2 is praise. The Bible says we enter his courts with thanksgiving and we enter into his courts with praise. God will never let a negative person into his presence. He won't. We enter into God's presence with praise, but remember, we're made in the image of God. This is the Holy of Holies. You can talk to me in a disrespectful tone, but you're not getting in here. And you'll never influence me till you get in here. And same is true with men and women. This is universal. If I'm going to ever be successful in communicating with Karen, I have to begin with a positive tone, and I have to praise her. Negativity destroys marriages. You can say negative things, but you have to be careful how you say them. And you earn your right to say those by saying a lot of positive things. But praise means this. When you come to me and you praise me, and you focus on my strengths and don't become critical and focus on my weakness, I'll open my courts to you, and that means my heart of hearts. You enter into my gates with thanksgiving, and you enter into my courts with praise, because I'm made in the image of God. And when you become critical or negative, man or woman, you're not going to get into my heart. And we're not going to be intimate. We're not going to have a good marriage. We're not going to successfully communicate till we're communicating on a heart level. You can talk to my ear any way you want to. That's called noise. But if you're going to communicate with my heart, it is the Holy of Holies, and I'm not opening the gates to you until you praise me. And praise is a discipline that keeps us focused on what is right. Praise gets you to remember why you fell in love with that individual. And when praise leaves, criticism always comes, because there's no such thing as a void. You don't have a marriage where there's no praise and no criticism. When the positive goes, the negative comes in. So we keep the negative away by positive. Focus on positive things. And when you, by the way, when people argue, and this is proven in research, a conversation never rises above the level of the first 3 minutes. Never. When you start a conversation negatively, by accusing, by criticizing, by coming at your spouse aggressively, you have doomed the communication, and you need to stop it and walk away and come back in an hour or two and apologize and start again. Because you don't start a conversation by accusing and being negative. You start a conversation by saying, I love you and we're on the same team. And I'm committed to our relationship and I'm glad I married you. We need to be positive. Number 3, standard is truth. We need to speak the truth to each other. Now we need to be careful how we do it. The Bible says in Proverbs 3:3, bind mercy and truth to your neck and write them on the tablet of your heart. And then Ephesians 4 says, speaking the truth in love, we grow up into all aspects into Him. Mercy without truth is a cheerleader without a team. Truth without mercy is surgery without anesthesia. Truth without mercy is mean, and mercy without truth is meaningless. We need both of them. We need to be kind in what we say, but we need to speak the truth. We need to give each other the right to speak the truth. We need to have an atmosphere of truth. All dysfunctional families either have no communication, they're silent, or they just don't talk about the truth. There's an elephant, white elephant, standing in the middle of the room and nobody talk about it. That's what a dysfunctional family is. A functional family says, we're going to talk about the truth. We're going to talk about our feelings. We're going to talk about real issues in our relationship, but we're going to do it in a loving way. And so give your spouse the right to tell the truth, and you tell the truth. And be careful how you do it, but have a truthful relationship. That's where intimacy comes from. Number 4 is faith. This is a standard in communication. You have to have faith. Without faith, you become mean. In fact, 1 Peter 3 talks about women being able to change their husbands without a word as he observes your chaste and respectful behavior, and it talks about there the gentle and quiet spirit. A gentle and quiet spirit is not a mousy spirit. A gentle and quiet spirit is a woman who has faith that when she speaks that God's on her side. I don't have to be the enforcer. I've got God on my side. I used to bully Karen verbally. After I repented, I would say something to Karen and I would become forceful with her. And one time Karen said to me, Jimmy, I wish that I could just take a recording of what you say and play it back to you, and you would realize the way you talk to me. This is what I said. I don't talk to you bad. I don't agree with that. The difference between the old Jimmy and the new Jimmy is the new Jimmy had faith that if what I was saying was right, that God would be the enforcer. You have every right to say anything you want to say. Are you the enforcer or is God the enforcer? Because if you have faith that God's the enforcer, you're going to say it and walk away and pray and be at peace. You're going to have a gentle and quiet spirit, whether you're a man or a woman. But if you're the enforcer, you're going to nag, you're going to browbeat, you're going to punish, you're going to bully, and you're going to divide the relationship. Faith. I have faith that if I speak the truth, that the power of God is going to take it and change your life. God's big enough to change you, and if I'm wrong, He's big enough to change me. That's the 4th standard. And the last standard is surrender. I surrender my mouth to God. This mouth belongs to God, and it will be used by God.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that teaching. I hope it helped you. It's from my Marriage on the Rock seminar. It's the most important seminar that I do. It's the biggest seminar that I do. It's actually the first seminar I ever did on marriage, but we just keep updating it. And so right now, we want to get these resources into your hands. Now, you just heard a small part of the full 10-part seminar series. Right now, for your gift of any amount, we want to get you the most important issue in marriage single CD. And it is the most important issue in marriage, and it will bless you. Any amount that you give, we'll put that in the mail to you. Right now, for your gift of $50 or more, we'll send you the full seminar on CD, plus my Marriage on the Rock book. Now, thousands of churches use these in their churches, in their life groups, and thousands of Bible studies all over the world take place with Marriage on the Rock. It talks about sex, money, children, in-laws, blended families, communication, roles in marriage, how to understand and meet your spouse's needs, the 4 foundational laws of marriage, the most important issue in marriage. This is our biggest and best seminar, and we want to put the full CD series into your hands and the book for your gift of $50 or more. And let me tell you, that's a bargain. And for your gift right now of $110 or more, for those of you who are able to do that, we want to send you the 10-part DVD series along with the book Marriage on the Rock, and also our little book, Happy, Happy Love. It is a fantastic book to help you in the area of romance, intimacy, just making your marriage more fun, putting the spark back in your marriage. We want to put these resources into your hands. Here's how you can get them.
Marriage on the Rock, the best-selling book and series, is the essential resource to having the marriage of your dreams. Through this power-packed series, marriage expert Jimmy Evans will show you how to deal with real-life challenges and offer easy-to-understand solutions that will transform your relationship. Jimmy will address all the major issues a couple will encounter, like communication, finances, sex, kids, his and her needs, blended families, and much more. For your gift of any amount, you'll receive the CD single, The Most Important Issue in Marriage. For your gift of $50 or more, we'll send you the Marriage on the Rock book and CD series. For your gift of $110 or more, you'll receive the book and DVD series, plus the Passion Reigniting Happy, Happy Love book. Discover God's design for your dream marriage. Whether you've been married for years or just preparing for the journey, experience Marriage on the Rock today.
This program today is on communication. This comes from the Marriage on the Rock seminar, the 10-part seminar where it talks about, in-laws, children, communication, sex, blended families, roles in marriage, how to understand and meet your spouse's needs, so on and so forth. But this is one part of that full seminar on communication. And, like I was saying in the teaching there, communication is, it's everything in a marriage relationship. You can't fall in love with a person, stay in love with a person you're not talking to. You certainly can't, be intimate with a person that you're not talking to. And like any other war, when an enemy's trying to defeat somebody, they try to cut their communication lines. And when the devil's trying to destroy your marriage, what he tries to do is cut your communication lines. It's so critical that as a married couple that we talk, but we talk proactively. In other words, we talk before things become an issue. There's 3 types of communication in marriage. There's proactive, there's reactive, and there's radioactive. Proactive communication means we're going to sit down proactively and we're going to sit face to face and we're going to talk about the kids and talk about money and talk about sex and talk about, the issues that we're having before they become issues. Because we're going to sit down and talk about them and resolve those. The second type of communication is reactive communication. In other words, we're not talking proactively. And by the way, Amos 3:3 says, can 2 walk together unless they first agree? The answer is no. If you're not talking, you can't walk together because you both are trying to go different directions. But when you sit down and talk and you say, something, we're going to walk for the rest of our lives together. And if we're going to do that, we really need to get into agreement about the kids and about money and about all these kinds of things. When you proactively communicate, it's such a blessing. It's such an enjoyable journey. When you don't, you react. You're reacting to money, you're reacting to the kids, you're reacting to work stress, you're reacting to all these other things that are going on, and what happens then, you start reacting and fighting, and then it becomes radioactive. And that means somebody's going to get hurt. We can't talk about this without name-calling, without yelling, without explosive temper, and things like that. When Karen and I were on the brink of divorce, we had radioactive issues in our marriage that we couldn't talk about. But when we began to sit down, when I began as a husband, to sit down and patiently talk with my wife about the things that were going on, and to be humble, and to say I was sorry, and to resolve one conflict after the other, and to begin to agree on the kids, and agree on money, and agree on these things, the entire atmosphere of our home changed. It dramatically changed our home. And today, we don't react to issues, and we have no radioactive issues in our marriage. We proactively communicate, and because we sit down and respect each other, we're not afraid of truth. We let each other share the truth without attacking each other. We're not defensive. Whenever you do that, it changes everything, and then you're able to talk. Your communication lines are open. You fall back in love if you've lost the passion in your marriage. You become intimate because you're talking about everything. It's wonderful to be able to talk in marriage. So maybe if you've lost the passion and intimacy of your relationship, you realize you're not talking the way that you should, you be the first. You be the first in your marriage to open up and begin to talk and tell your spouse, hey, let's sit down. Let's sit down and talk about money. Let's sit down and develop a budget. Let's sit down and develop a plan related to the kids. Let's sit down and talk about these important issues of our marriage until we come into agreement, and nothing is off limits. And when you do that, I promise, it changes everything. I hope that you've been blessed by today's program. I also hope if you've been touched by this ministry that you'll stand with us financially. The information is there on your screen. I hope that you'll give your most generous gift. Anything that you give is a blessing to us. Nothing is too small. Nothing is too large. We go all over the world helping people in marriage, and we can do it because of wonderful people like you. Please stand with us financially. Hope you've been blessed by this program today. We'll see you next time. God bless you.
Thank you for watching Marriage Today with Jimmy and Karen. Subscribe to Marriage Today's YouTube channel for more marriage building videos and updates.
Coming up on Marriage Today with Jimmy and Karen.
God's going to test your character, your mouth, your morals, and your work ethic, your attitude. And to the degree that we're willing to make the character choices to allow God to dig us deep is to the same degree that He'll build us high. And if you have this big dream inside of you, you may be asking yourself the question, why is God so severe with me? Why am I having to go through all this? It's not because God hates you, it's because He loves you. Any good desire that you have didn't come from you, it came from God. If you have the desire to help people and to lead people to Christ and to do good things in your life, that did not come from you, that came from God. But sometimes it's just a desire. A dream can be just a deep desire that we have. This is Revelation 22:6. He said to me, these words are faithful and true. And the Lord God of the holy prophets sent his angel to show his servants the things which must shortly take place. God only talks to servants. He's not going to argue with you. He's not going to chase you down. He's not going to beg you. When I made Jesus the Lord of my life at 19 years old, 2 weeks later, He called me into the ministry. And when I got saved, I got saved. I didn't buy fire insurance. I didn't walk the aisle to buy fire insurance so I wouldn't go to hell. I gave my entire life to Jesus Christ at 19 years old. And at 19 years old, I told Him, I make you Lord of my life. From this point forward, I live for you and I'll never turn back. And that was 37 years ago, and I meant business, and I've never turned back in 37 years. I made Jesus the Lord of my life. And when I became His servant, immediately He began to speak to me. And sometimes you might be saying, Jimmy, I'm not hearing. I mean, I'm trying to get the dream, but I'm not hearing. I'm just asking this question. I'm not saying and accusing you of anything, but I'm just saying maybe you're not surrendered. Maybe you're on the fence. Maybe you're still bargaining and, holding back. God speaks to us when we surrender to Him. You surrender your marriage, your family, your finances, your future, your giftings, your time, your influence. You surrender to God. And to the degree that we surrender, He talks to us. Here's another thing about your dream. It doesn't happen immediately or automatically. It requires a journey. There are decisions that we make that cause the dream to happen or cause the dream to be delayed. And here are the three common reasons why dreams are delayed. Number one is idolatry. And idolatry in our lives just means something takes God's place in a practical way. We focus on it more. It's more important to us. It motivates us more than God motivates us. And so Abraham and Sarah were around 80 years old, and they had not had a child. And it was heartbreaking. Let me tell you, Abraham was in current terms, he was a billionaire. Phenomenally powerful, wealthy man. Let me quantify how powerful and influential Abraham was. His house servants defeated 5 kings to rescue his nephew Lot. When your house servants can defeat 5 kings, you are one powerful individual. Abraham was a powerful man. He had no heir. And he complained to God one day, and he said, if I die, who am I going to leave all my stuff to? A house servant. I don't even have an heir. And God took Abraham outside one night, and he said, look up the stars of the sky, because your descendants will be like that. And Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him as righteousness. He looked up, and he believed at 80 years old. Let me tell you something. When you're 80 years old, trying to have children, the clock is ticking really hard. No offense to anybody here in your 80s. God bless you. But they're 80 years old, and God says you're going to have a baby. Well, it didn't happen that year, or the next year, or the next year. Now, I'm just saying, you're 80 years old, you're 81, you're 82, you're 83, then, okay, now we need triplets, quadruplets, If we're going to get to that, there's going to have to be some production here real quick. Didn't happen. So one day, Genesis 16 records, Abraham and Sarah had a bright idea. They got so obsessed with making the dream happen and believing that it wasn't going to happen, through Sarah, that Sarah said to Abraham, go into with my servant Hagar and have a baby with her. And he did. His name was Ishmael. God delayed the dream for 13 years until Ishmael bar mitzvahed. I know he wasn't Jewish, but bar mitzvahed. In the Jewish society, in the Hebrew mind, a boy becomes a man at 13 years old. He's bar mitzvahed. So as soon as Ishmael turned 13, Sarah got pregnant. And Isaac was born, the son of the promise. Ishmael, God was not going to accept the product of their doing as being the son of the promise, because it didn't happen from God. And so when Isaac was born, you can just imagine, now they're about 100 years old. There's been a long time waiting for this child. And so now they're around 100 years old, and Isaac is born, and God comes to Abraham one day and said, sacrifice him. Take your son, your only son, and go to Mount Moriah and lay him down and sacrifice him to me. Imagine for just a minute the significance of that child in Abraham and Sarah's life, and how long that they had waited. And Abraham was an old man. The second chance didn't seem likely. Abraham saddled up his mule and loaded it up with his son and took him up to Mount Moriah and laid him down. By the way, don't do that. That was the Old Testament. It was just something for Abraham. On days you may be tempted, do not sacrifice your children to God as an offering. Abraham took the knife up, and Isaac was laying there. He was coming down, and the angel grabbed his arm and said, now we know that you fear God. See, this boy had become an idol. He became more important than God. We know that because of Ishmael. We also know it because of the test, when God said, lay him down. See, this is what happens. There are, all of us really, when God gives us a dream and a promise, it's so easy for that to begin to consume our lives. A healing, a child, a marriage, a ministry, a business, a breakthrough, whatever it might be, it begins to consume us. And here's how you know that your dream has become more important than God. Number one, your relationship with God becomes focused around the promise and making it happen. It's all you talk to God about. God is the servant of the promise, rather than the promise being the servant of God. And let me say, God is not going to become the servant of the promise. He's bigger than that. Number two, you get mad at God concerning his timing or his methods. I got mad at God. He called me to preach at 19, told me I couldn't go to the seminary, and so I spent 9 years waiting in the appliance business. Didn't seem like any progress was going on. And I got mad at God one day. Well, actually what happened was I saw this ad from Oklahoma City, a church in Oklahoma City that had a Bible school. And they said, this is a Bible school and we train people for ministry and it's connected with this church. And I thought, well, God won't let me go to seminary, but I can go to Bible school. Now, in the back of my mind, I knew I was sinning. I just want to say that right up front. I knew I was kind of on the edge, so I called that Bible school. And when I called him, I talked to this guy, and I began to tell him, I was about 25 years old, so I'm 25 years old, I've been called to ministry, I want to go to ministry, I can't go to seminary, but it sounds like what you're doing is what I need. And he said, you're just the kind of a person we're building this school for. And he said, we want you to come over here, go to our school. And I said, well, I'm very interested. He said, well, I'm going to put all the information in the mail today so that you can get it and just fill out the form, send it to us, and be a part of our Bible school. I told my dad that I was quitting our business. I said, Daddy, I'm going to go to Bible school in Oklahoma City. And I made all my plans. And when I hung up the phone and talking to that guy, I kind of had this little thing in my mind that was going, well, maybe that's not right. So I laid a fleece before the Lord, and I said, Lord, if this is not of you, don't let that come in the mail. Don't let that disinformation come in the mail. And I thought, well, it's going to come. But at least he has a chance to kill the postman or something, I'll give him that little chance, kill the postman. So, didn't come the next day. Hey, who cares, Probably takes 2 days. Didn't come the day after that, and I thought, well, that's a little slow. Probably the truck broke down, on Interstate 40, and they had a little trouble. It'll get here tomorrow. Didn't come the next day. Didn't come the day after that. Didn't come the day after that. Never came. And I sat down one morning and I had a talk with God. And I said, now listen, you kill me, or you take this thing out of my heart, or you fulfill it, because I'm miserable and I don't want to live this way. Now, first of all, God doesn't like to be talked to like that. I wouldn't suggest it, especially in thunderstorm season. And God just real kindly spoke to me and said, now you wait and you do it my way. Everything was fulfilled exactly the way that God told me. The promise was fulfilled. It didn't happen the way I thought it was going to happen. It sure didn't happen in the timing I thought that God was going to happen. But at exactly the moment that God had prescribed, he opened that door, but I almost bucked out of the chute. Just like Abraham and Sarah, when the promise consumes you, you kind of take matters into your own hands. Here's another way to know the dream has become more important than God. You try to make it happen yourself without God's approval, just like I did and Abraham and Sarah did. And last is, you won't lay it down. God comes to you and he says, lay it down. Worship me, serve me, follow me. Lay this thing down, just like Abraham. Stop letting this thing consume your life. Stop letting this thing keep you from your relationship with me. You lay that thing down and put it in its right place. And if you won't lay it down, that's how you know that it's really become more important than God. Let me say this. As long as God is first, we progress toward our dream. As soon as the dream overtakes God, everything stops. And just like in Abraham and Sarah's case, for 13 years the dream was delayed because they took matters into their own hands and were consumed by what God already had in mind for them when they didn't trust his faithfulness. And the second reason why dreams are delayed, the first is idolatry, the second is immaturity. When God is going to build something great, he digs it deep. Just like any master builder, God never overbuilds on a foundation. And if you've ever noticed a skyscraper being built, before they build it up, they dig it deep. And this is what God does. See, you can tell what God has in store for your life by how deep he digs you. When he's wanting to do something great with you, your character, he obsesses over your character. Character is the foundation upon which God places all promises. And without good character, something great will destroy you and you'll destroy it. Joseph was 17 years old and he got a dream that he was going to rule the world. How many of you know that a 17-year-old is not ready to rule the world? How many of you know they all want to, though? He needed character. So God sent him on a journey to develop his character. And he took him through 3 stages in 13 years, and all of them had a significant meaning. The number one test, character test, that God sent Joseph through to prepare him was the pit test. Joseph had a big mouth. God gave him 2 dreams, and he blabbed them all over his family, and everybody hated him. Your dream is about people, and people are precious to God, and words are nuclear. Let me say that one more time. Your dream is not about, if your dream is about money or power or something like that, and that's all it's about, it's not from God. That's not a God dream. That's a sick dream. Every dream that God will give you is about helping people and about leading people closer to God and reconciling their lives somehow. And people are precious and words are nuclear. Proverbs 18 says, the power of death and life is in our tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Death. Many of us are still suffering from words that were spoken to us many years ago. Words are nuclear, but also words give life. We can encourage people, we can help people, we can counsel people, we can bless people, but God will never give you more than your mouth can steward. And Joseph had a big mouth, and his brothers threw him into a pit. And it's interesting, and Joseph always made the right decision in his times of testing. And the interesting thing that happened when Joseph was thrown into the pit is he never said a word. He shut his mouth. And from that time forward, Joseph was very, very careful in what he spoke. God will test your mouth, and how you speak will determine in what God can entrust to you, especially who God can entrust to you. He's not going to give you influence over people so you can tear them up. Words are very important. The second test that Joseph went through was the Potiphar's house test. Potiphar was a ruler in Egypt. And Joseph was sold for very few dollars by his brothers. Don't ever let the enemy establish the value of your life. That's the moral of that story. He was in the pit listening to his brothers selling for a few bucks to a caravan. And they took him to Potiphar's house, and he became a slave in Potiphar's house. And Potiphar's wife loved Joseph. He was a young, good-looking man in his sexual prime who had been rejected by his family, was lonely. If there was ever a young man who had a reason, an excuse to sin, it was Joseph. But when Potiphar's wife tried to seduce Joseph, he turned her down. And she became angry and sent him to prison. Let me say this now. If your ethics are situational, God cannot use you. If your ethics are absolute, you're the person he's looking for. Many people excuse behavior because I'm hurting, nobody loves me, well, she was pretty, well, I never knew, we make excuses for doing the wrong thing. Everybody's doing it, and all those kinds of things like that. That's not the person that God's looking for. God's looking for a person that says it's wrong. It doesn't matter who's watching. It doesn't matter how bad I'm hurting. Nothing else matters is I know that's wrong and I'm not going to do it. And if I did do it, it was wrong and I repent. And in our society, we have situational ethics, floating morals, values that are situational, rather than the absolute moral foundations that our founding fathers gave us. And look what's happening to our society. See, I like this definition of the heart. I like this definition of heart. What you do in secret when no one's looking. If you ever want to know what your heart is, that's your heart. It's what we do in private. And Joseph said, I don't care who it is, where it is, who's watching, or how bad I'm hurting, I will not justify this sin with you. It didn't look like he was being promoted, but they promoted him and sent him to prison. That was the third test, the prison test. Potiphar's wife lies about Joseph. They send him to prison. He gets to prison and never mopes one day, never spends 1 minute moping around the prison. Immediately he begins to serve the warden of the prison to the degree that the warden turned the prison over to Joseph. This guy's something else now, I'll tell you. Never mopes, never complains. I think, I would have been so devastated by that point, I would have sat in the corner of my cell, just whining and moaning. I'd have taken a tin can and put it on the bars and done like this and tried to rally a group to rebel with me or something. I don't know. I can just see myself in that. Joseph showed up at prison and said, I can serve you, warden. Just let me help. And I'm sure the warden said, sure, I'm sure you want to shovel and work in the garden, dig a hole into the wall. But he began to give Joseph little jobs. Joseph was a servant. He was a worker. And before long, he was over the whole jail and he began to minister to his fellow prisoners. Pretty remarkable guy. And see, a lot of people, they have this dream, and they think that just somehow that, there's just going to be this holy glory around them that's going to be recognized, and from nothing, they're going to become something. No, you'll serve your way to the dream, or you won't get there. And you'll start right where you're at. And you might say, I've got some really difficult circumstances. I'm working in a prison, maybe not the prison, but where I'm working right now is a bad person in a bad situation. And God says, you serve them. You be the best employee there. You roll up your sleeves and you serve that person. And you clean toilets. You sweep the floors. You be the first person there and the last person to leave. And you serve. Because I promote servants. But I'm not going to recognize anything else. And if you have this big dream inside of you, you may be asking yourself the question, why is God so severe with me? Why am I having to go through all this? It's not because God hates you, it's because he loves you. For 13 years, Joseph went through a tough deal. But God wasn't punishing the young man, he was preparing him to become ruler of the world. You were created in your mother's womb for a great purpose. You really were, but people may have told you something different. Life may have beat you up a little bit, and sometimes you might get discouraged, but I'm just telling you right now, a great God created you in your mother's womb for a great purpose. I hope you believe that, because it's the truth. In this I Am Joseph series, that's the purpose of the series. To let people, Joseph was a beaten down guy that was thrown into a pit and sold for a few bucks by his brothers, but he rose up to fulfill his destiny in God. And that's what I want for you, is regardless of what life has done for you or to you, for you to be able to overcome and to become what God has called you to be. This I Am Joseph series is a 4-part series. What you saw in today's program is just a small part of the full resource. And we want to put this into your hands right now for your gift of any amount to support us here at Marriage Today. And we need your financial support. This is a mission across America and around the world. Karen and I we're passionate about helping people in their life and in their marriages. For your gift of any amount, we want to put my new book, 10 Steps Toward Christ, into your hands. This is the book I wish somebody would have given me the day I got saved. It will be a blessing to you. Also, for your gift of $30 or more, the 4-part series, I Am Joseph, on CD, audio CD, with the book, 10 Steps Toward Christ. For your gift of $50 or more, it's the 4-part I Am Joseph DVD series, along with the book. These are great, great resources to encourage you, or maybe somebody that you love. We want to put these into your hands. Here's how you can get them.
Experience the life-changing series I Am Joseph by Jimmy Evans. As our way of saying thank you, we'll also include Jimmy's book, 10 Steps Toward Christ. For your gift of $30 or more, you'll receive the CD series and book. For your gift of $50 or more, you'll receive the DVD series and book. Inspired by the biblical story of Joseph, this series will show you there is a plan for your life and steps to put it into motion, the significance of the multicolored coat, and how to reach your full potential.
Now, when you dream a dream, sometimes it's going to challenge you, maybe even scare you, because it's so big, it's so awesome. It's beyond your ability. Of course it is. You're going to have to partner up with God for it to happen.
For your gift of any amount, we'll send you Jimmy's book, 10 Steps Toward Christ. Discover the great things that can happen when you give yourself permission to dream.
A lot of people ask me, they say, Jimmy, how do I know what my dream is? How do I know what God has called me to do? And let me talk about that for just a minute, because that's very important. When I was growing up, I had such a different, personality and set of giftings, and I'm kind of ADD, so it's hard for me to sit and do something for very long. And I'm creative, and I love to speak, and all these things. And I used to wonder, how in the world will I ever find a job where I can do, everything that I enjoy doing? Did you know that when you have God's dream inside of you and you're fulfilling God's dream, it scratches every itch? It's perfect for you. One time I was in church, and before I became a pastor, I worked in the sound booth in the church. I was in business, and I volunteered in our church before I became a pastor. And I was running the sound one day, and I was miserable.
I mean, I was working in business with my parents. I loved my parents, but I didn't want to be in business with my parents. I wanted to be in the ministry. And I had this concept of God in my mind that, you know, I may have wanted to do this, but God was going to send me to China or Africa or some other place that, you know, in other words, if you're enjoying it too much, there's something wrong with that. And this pastor was speaking that day, and he said this, which set me free. He said, we don't serve a God who gives you the desire to go to China and keeps you here. And we don't serve a God that gives you the desire to stay here and sends you to China. He says, our God gives you a desire and He fulfills that desire. And that's what I want you to hear me say. It's already in you. And the righteous desires for children, you know, a lot of people think, well, if my dream isn't to, you know, take over the world and being, you know, a spirit-filled Warren Buffett, that's not good enough. If your dream is to raise righteous children, that's a big dream. To be a worship leader, to help poor people, to be a pastor, to help people in business, for your business to resource the kingdom of God. God puts a dream inside of you, and it's just the most natural thing in the world. It's something that you're good at. It's something that you desire to do. One of the ways that you know that your dream is from God and what you're called to do is it's life to you, and it's life to other people. My life is so funny because I love to sit alone with God and just hear God and get messages like the message you heard today. I just love it. It's life to me. Okay, a lot of people couldn't do that, but I absolutely love it. And I love this. I love helping people. I love encouraging people just like this. It's who I am. Karen is just different than me in so many ways. But God made her in her mother's womb, put a dream in her heart. And when she fulfills her dream, it looks different than mine. And we have some things in common. This program is an example. But there are things that she does that are so life-giving to her and the people around her. When you're doing something that God doesn't want you to do, it's death to you and death to other people around you. But God's given you a dream. I hope that this program today encourages you. I hope that it encourages you. Like Joseph. Joseph had a lot of tough turns in life, but he had a dream in his heart. And God was faithful to that dream. And I just want you to know God's going to be faithful to you. Don't give up. Don't get discouraged. If you have that dream in your heart, you be faithful to God, and He'll take you to your promised land. I hope that this program today has been an encouragement to you, and I also hope that you'll consider standing with Karen and me financially. We're a mission that we go across America and around the world with this important message to help people succeed in life and in marriage. And we have monthly partners that support us, and I'm asking you to become a monthly partner. Here's how you can do it.
Going through divorce is a lot to ask of children and often results in years of emotional pain. It's a violent ripping apart of their parents and a sense of abandonment. What sometimes we see as a quick way out can mean complete loss for a child.
You have a 100% chance of success in marriage. You were made for marriage.
Marriage Today exists to protect children from the pain of divorce and to steer couples away from marital failure by telling them the truth. When you stand with Marriage Today, your individual effort multiplies with other like-minded partners, and together we can rebuild a legacy of strong families around the world. Choose your level of partnership today and receive immediate access to the video streaming library. Become a rock-solid partner today.
Thank you for watching Marriage Today with Jimmy and Karen. Subscribe to Marriage Today's YouTube channel for more marriage building videos and updates.